Whew, okay, cool. Recording started. Now we start the stream. Welcome to Turing Complete Tuesday. You know what's going on. We are ever so close to finishing up this Slack bot. Just handle a few more cases, a few more bugs in the program, and then we should all be good to go. The first thing we gotta do is we gotta start up the server. Launch that up. Session expires in 8 hours. Fine by me. Take the link, copy it, open it up. Go to Slack API applications. Now we take all of these request URLs and change them to the new ngrok address. Quick and fast. If you're joining us for the first time, welcome. Glad to have you on board. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them. I'm just gonna answer questions as they arise, because explaining this bot over and over again is a little tiring. But I'll probably just explain it again anyway at some point. Anyways, I'm just making a Slack bot, and I just want it to work. You know, I just want the thing to work. So I've got all of the different commands set up, and they're connected to the new application. I'm gonna make a new terminal to actually run the app. Okay, so here, I'm gonna open this new tab. Get that all down. So with the sickness, I get up on it again with the sickness. Spread out, wow. Okay, we got an app. Applies app routing. Require body parser. Parsers request bodies. Redises require Redis. Arouse to set up a Redis client locally. What I will need to do, just to clean everything up, I'm gonna, what's it called? I am going to, first I'm gonna put on some music, but I'm gonna flush the database just to make sure that we're starting with a clean slate here. Node flush Redis DB. I think CLI. See, it's a matter of what the command is called. Flush all. There you go. Redis Labs. There we go. Okay, I think there's no RD. Well, I'll just do RD CLI and see if that does it. Then -h hostname. I'm keeping it off the screen so you guys don't steal the tokens. Copy that, paste -p, and then the port number. Copy that, paste that. -a password. And copy, paste. Flush all. There we go. Okay, yeah, it was RD CLI for the node install for whatever reason. Okay. Now we kill this terminal. And then we make a new terminal. Okay. So as long as I don't press the up button and show my command that just read out the password, we should be good. I shouldn't have to reset the password anymore. Okay. Now, let's take a quick read through the code here. See what we got. Evan Campbell. Other music that's like pretty good. Let's find out. What was I saying? Snipes. This doesn't concern me. Oh, let me hop into the chill channel. So I'm on the Discord now. If you want to chill in there. Create client. .vv.config. Require express. Body parser. Okay, so these are all just things that the rest of the code needs to use. So it's npm installed, ready to go. This creates the client at the port, connected it through the port and the host name, and also the password. Authorizes through there. Check your credentials, blah, blah, blah. Creates the Express app locally to run. Connects on port 3000. Listens on that port. And uses body parser. Now URL encoded extended equals true. Parser.json. And we attach the slash command. The URL encoded extended is false. // command, which is this thing. Now this is where all of the slash commands are handled. So it goes through a series of ifs and handles them accordingly. So if the command is /odds, then check to make sure that there's an ID. Challenge ID, grab it, and then you can only have one challenge at a time. Redis scan helper hash. I'll go down to the helper function here real quick. So scan helper, basically it's just a function that will execute a if, yeah, a lot of ifs. But the Redis scan helper, it performs a scan function, which is like a looping function on a Redis database. And so it does a scan, and then it takes the reply, returns it. If there's an error, throw it. Else, takes this callback function. So once the scan is finished, it works with what it gets back. So there's an error variable that gets returned in the reply. Otherwise, if there's no error, then the reply is going to include an array of two values. Reply 0 is the new cursor position, which is how Redis loops through its databases. It has a cursor position that starts at 0 and then advances to different positions until it hits 0 again, and that determines that's the end of the scan. So it grabs a new cursor, and then it says this is the cursor value, and then it says here's all the keys that it grabbed, because it can grab multiple keys in one cursor run. So it grabs all the keys, and then if there's keys, then use equals function. So this Redis scan helper has its parameter is a function, which, as you can see, is this thing. So here's the parenthesis, and then this thing that's getting passed to it is the hash or key grabbed in the function passed with keys I. So all of this returns. This is all inside of this parentheses. So that's the function getting passed in, and it's case specific. That's the reason that I have this helper function. So anyways, there is a flag variable to check to see if a key was used, and each function that uses the Redis scan helper returns a true or false value based on that. So if the key was used, then break out of this do loop, because we found the key that we're looking for. We don't need to scan anymore. Hydrate. Okay, Bubby. What was I gonna say? So that's the Redis scan helper, and it just keeps looping while there is a cursor, and the cursor is not equal to 0 because the cursor indicates that you've reached the end, and as long as the key isn't used, just as another check. Or sorry, no, it breaks out of this loop of the inner keys within the loop of looping through cursors. So if key used, where's key? Okay, yeah, key used is defined at the beginning, so that's fine. Thank you, Tori. Yeah, if you wanna help me debug this shit, I would very much appreciate the help. Key used. Jesus Christ. Yeah, so that's the basic functionality of the Redis scan helper. Anyways, so now I'll just address the specific case-by-case functionality within each of these. So we were in odds. This is the initial challenge. And there's also a response set flag that basically, because we have a sort of function within function functionality that's like this is going to be looping and it needs to break out of this inner loop as well as this outer loop as soon as a key is used. But I'm 0.6 points away from making you're suffering yourself right now. What does that even mean? Involve parties. So it needs to be broken out of both this side of things, the slash command, and the inner Redis scan helper function if a thing is used. So that's why you see when I am sending these response sent JSONs, or I need to check this thing. If there hasn't been a response sent, then set it to true and the response. Because there was a bug where I would somehow, through looping either in the Redis scan helper or in here, it would try to send multiple like things after something's already been sent back, which if you know anything about request and response with HTTP, you can't do that. You can only send one thing per request. So after you send a response, you shouldn't be able to send anything else. So it was crashing the app because it was trying to send multiple things back after something was sent. So those checks are in place to prevent that. Anyways, so this specific implementation of the Redis scan helper takes each key or hash and checks it. My hash naming schema is basically I take the ID of the challenge by grabbing this challenge ID, and then also the ID of the person initiating the challenge by grabbing the request.body.user ID, which is something that Slack sends over. I'm also debugging shit. Yeah. Start a stream, go watch the VOD. And then putting them together and then splitting them with this symbol, the vertical line thing. So basically, I want what it's supposed to do is it's supposed to go through and say, hey, based on this split, I split up the hash with this line. So it should get the person who was initiating and the person who was challenged, look at both of them, and then see if the ID that they're looking at, so this for each loop, this involved parties is an array of 2, should be an array of 2, and then do for each loop, grab the ID, or use the ID as like a placeholder var, and then see if that ID matches either the person that's initiating the challenge or the ID of the challenged that's been grabbed here. And if that's true, if that happens to be the case, then you say, yes, response status, 200.json, people can only have one outstanding challenge at a time, and they must resolve it first or cancel with /cancel odds. So that's what's supposed to happen. When I was testing it last week, that wasn't happening, and I don't know why. It might be because there's some, like, maybe I shouldn't be using 3 equal signs here. There might be some weird casing issues or something like that, so maybe that's something I should try out. But I don't feel like that should be the case. But I'm not sure. Anyway, so that's some kind of issue there. And then at that point, you return response sent. as the key used. Because at this point, if you check it and you say, hey, wait a minute, this thing was used, in this case, like this hash was used in the sense of something was found and the request needs to be canceled. So then you say return response sent. And that should break the loop down in Redis scan helper as well. Handle bad case of a user trying to challenge themselves. So obviously you can't challenge yourself because that'd be silly. If there's no response sent, then do blah, 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 and then, response with the status of 200. I do 200s here. I don't really need to. I think it does automatically 200s. I thought that was causing issues before. I could probably just delete them now because they're all 200s. That's the only way that you can send to send this message back, you need to send it with a 200. Otherwise, the API will return a generic, pre-made Slack-defined error message being like, there was a client-side error, or there was a user-side error. So I want to make it more specific than that. But the only way I can do that is by sending it back with 200s regardless. So, yeah. Try running the code without changing anything. Maybe it'll work this time. You're right. You're absolutely right. Node index.js. There we go. Okay. So here we go. We're going to quickly go to bot spam, and we're going to pop in here. We're going to say /odds at Angela back at it again. Eat that egg. Okay. So if everything were to work properly, what would happen next is that we would look at this. What would happen is that she needs to set the odds at a certain value with set odds. And then what happens is check that. Yeah. So you go through the hash, you say, hey, look at all of them, and then if the second one, because it's always initiator challenged with these hashes, so you got to see if you split it and then grab the second element, which is, it's 0 index, so 1 is the second element. But you make sure that the person that's sending the set odds is being challenged. Then you go and you see if their thing has an upper bound set. And this is, I just put in these console logs to make sure that it's actually reading numbers correctly, because I'm still not sure if I'm getting Redis or regex correctly, which is like the whole custom numbering system. Anyways, do I need to put slashes here? Yeah, I don't think this is correct. Maybe it is. Anyways, first number grabbed. It's supposed to grab a number that's going to be set as the upper bounds. If upper limit exists and the upper limit is greater than 1 and upper limit is less than the number without max value, then you set the hash's upper limit value to the thing passed in. And this is all set up here when you create a challenge properly. So value 0, yeah. I don't understand why the reply is 1 here. These should all be 0, right? Print. Yeah, I'm not really sure why that's the case. Anyways, check that there's a valid number in the text, yada yada. So if that's all the case, then you send a response saying this is the upper limit that's been set. Now they must enter a value between 1 and that value, and respond that. Wait a minute. I think I might have missed a return here. Set. Or no, wait. Yeah, no, this has already been set down here. So this always gets returned. There's an if and an else. and then, yeah, says you need to enter a valid integer. If there's no, the user was not challenged, tell them so. So this loop should check all the hashes, and if this never occurs, then hold on. Sorry, I need to check my. Okay, yeah, no. So if yeah, this all happens within this if check. It'll just keep returning false if this never happens. And then when that happens, the loop would end and nothing would occur. Yeah, it just keep looping through and then nothing would happen. So then once it loops through, returns response sent at the end of all of those. If after all of this would set the response sent at the end of all of this in either of these cases. And if all of that goes through and none of that ever happens because this if check never occurs or never returns true, then response sent equals true. Then it'll tell them, hey, you haven't been challenged. And then, but Angela has been challenged. So as long as she returns by submitting a number, then it should work. If the user is not challenged, tell them so. Tell them so. If no response sent, yada yada, and then after she sets the upper bounds, then the next thing would be that me and her would both have to commit our odds with /commit odds. So then it does another scan and looks through and check that this person is involved. This one I do, for some reason I do it, instead of a for each loop, I do a for loop, which I don't think it really makes that much of a difference. I could have done either. It would have been fine. Anyways, if the involved party is equal to the person who sent commit odds, then odds equals null, and then match it against this thing, odds equals blah, blah, blah. The first number grabbed by the odds, yeah. So that's the same thing as setting the bounds. Then it needs to check that number that was grabbed to see if it exists, if it's greater than or equal to 1, and if it's less than or equal to the upper limit that was set earlier. If that's true, then it's going to check to make sure that it's going to check to see if both players have entered their numbers, and if that's the case, then it'll pass it on and say, like, hey, okay, here's the final results, because both people entered their numbers. If let odds already entered equals false, if I equals 0, this is the, that's why I'm doing it with a for I loop. Yeah, okay. So set the odds of the corresponding involved user only if they haven't put one in already. Okay. So yeah, so this is going to check both the initiator and the challenge. I equals 0 means it's on the left of that straight line split of the hash name. And then it checks to see if it's equal to 0. Then it'll set it, else it'll set already entered to true. Same thing for the challenged. If it's 0, it'll set it, else it'll be like true. Update these vars with the new values, share odds, and then if both parties have their odds entered, check to see if both parties have their odds entered. If they do, send back the results and delete the hash from the database. So it just updates these values with what's already been entered. Okay, so it looks like Angela just entered something. User value, all number matches. Okay, so that looks good. All numbers matches. 50. First number grabbed to the other. Yeah, okay. it's supposed to send a thing back to the channel. Maybe I entered that incorrectly. Did I enter that wrong? No, it's set to the in channel. Response type in channel. Response type in channel. So what is the problem? It should publicly say, like, hey, you set the thing as 50. Now both of you need to enter your odds. So why isn't that happening? Anyways, to keep going through commit odds, it updates these values with if they've been changed here, with an H set, and then if they're both not 0, then you delete the hash, and then it deletes the hash, and then it sends a response saying both parties submit their odds. This person at 0 and at 1 has entered blah blah blah, and then do with that information what you will. Else, if odds have already been entered, that means that somebody's trying to re-enter their odds after they've already submitted them. You have to say, you've already submitted your odds. Default successful odds committed message. So this is default successful odds committed. So that means that the other person hasn't submitted their odds yet. You're not trying to overwrite yours. You're just sending them in for the first time. So it'll just say that. Else, there's a bad value. This is after the check up here, where it checks to make sure that there is a good value that's been grabbed from the body of the text. In case of the bad value, it sends that back. You need to enter a valid integer that grabs the upper limit to remind the players what the upper limit is, and then returns response set. And then if everything else fails and it's just like you weren't challenged, then it'll do the same thing. Cancel odds is just a thing to clear any challenges that have been challenged on you from the database. It's pretty straightforward, just to see if there's anything in there, and if there is, then delete it and say your challenge has been deleted. If you are trying to cancel challenges to you that don't exist, or from you that don't exist, then it'll go through all of this, return nothing, and then say, okay, nothing's happened, so you have no active challenges right now, and then return. So, yeah. There was also problems with this when I was working with it last time, because there were challenges that I was in, because I know I sent them out, and I was getting the values back from the database with my username, which I think is the UIRUUE2R0. And so I knew I was in this list of things. So it should have been deleting that one and saying that this person has canceled their challenge. But it wasn't, and I don't know why. There's another bad case here that I'm not handling. I hadn't thought about. It gets pseudo-handled because you can't enter a value. Basically, I just realized that with the way commit odds is now, you can execute it without needing to do a set odds first. And that's no good. But it'll handle itself in the sense that you need to have odds that are greater than equal to 1 and less than or equal to the upper limit. But that's not possible if the upper limit hasn't been set, because the upper limit is defaulted to 0, and so you can't have a number that's greater than or equal to 1 and is also less than or equal to 0. So that handles itself, but I should probably make a more graceful way of handling it in the future. Anyways, so this was when I created the challenge. This is all from me creating the challenge. Because there's no keys, because I cleared the database before starting up today. And then this is just replying with 1 as like a standard Redis print response, I guess. So, yeah. It should be setting them all to 0. I don't know why it's replying with 1 exactly. But it replies with 0 when they set it. Upper limit. Yeah. So it grabs a number. Okay, so this Redis text does work, or regex text does work, because it's grabbing a number that I assume Angel put in as 50. If it's not 50, then I've got some other issues to figure out. But if it is, then it grabbed it successfully, and then it set. It went here, and hset hash upper limit Redis print, and then it should go in here and be like, hey, response set. It hasn't. Every time this function gets called, if you scroll back up to the top, it starts out as false. So, unless I'm misunderstanding how this all works, that should be set to false. It gets to here. It clearly gets to here because it reads this out, and then it prints the 0 here. That's the reply. And then it should do this function, because it should be false. It should read that out and be like, okay, set their upper limit. But I guess it's reading as true for some reason, because it's not printing, it's not sending that back. Yeah. Yeah, local time is greater than 9 p.m. Go to sleep, and if. Alright, good night, Ken. Thanks for dropping by. Okay. Why would that? These 3 mean that all of these get hit. Now, good night. It sucks that I wake up at 4:30 a.m. for work, because I basically have to go to bed when you start streaming. F in the chat. Yeah, and I don't think once I start working my full-time job, I don't think I'm going to be able to start any earlier. Probably the opposite, actually, if I do continue streaming daily. We'll see. But that is unfortunate. But rest well, my man. Why? We're just stuck on this. Maybe I don't need these response sends. I'm trying to figure out what the case would be where I need to break out of this necessarily. Well, see, I do need this response set for down here, where it checks it against to see if something's been set here. Then, but you can do that without. Well, I don't want to end this. Okay, so she did send. Stay safe to you as well. We must all stay safe. Okay. Right. Hello? Sir, can you please bring up the snipper? There we go. Alright. So here's the thing. Where does dot print y equals 0? To y. Forsaken reason the which doesn't this it makes even less sense because it would need to stay false for this entire period of time. false again for the out of loop final JSON send. Why? How is it the case that response sent is true? So this doesn't execute. And then this doesn't matter because it doesn't go into that. But then it comes back around and then it keeps looping through here. This is the only time. Response sent. Yeah, set odds. This only gets set to true if it breaks into here. But it doesn't do that because this never gets sent? Like, you know, why? Hey. Okay. Bad value, you need to enter a valid integer. Yeah, no, that won't ever happen. Well, wait a minute. So, no. But it definitely gets in here because the Redis print happens. If this was false, it would just send this back. So, how does it pass it? How does it go past these checks? How does it? How does this pass? You know what? How does this say, oh, this isn't the case, therefore I'm gonna break it? And then get out here, and then it's like, but there wasn't a response sent, so you gotta say that. Since it has been entered into the database correctly, I'm just gonna see if we can finish an odds challenge, even though it can't. It's not gonna respond to us the way it should be. On the assumption that you did actually submit your upper limit properly. Both do a /commit odds with a number between 1 and 50. /commit odds from 0. What? Okay, so it gets in there, and this time it's not getting to the reply. Why? What is the scenario? That sees it, connects it, and says this hash has a user involved. Ah! What the fuck is happening? First number grabbed. Okay, so if there are odds, which there are, because it reads it out, it grabs it. It's like, okay. So if the odds exist, the odds are greater than or equal to 1, and it's less than or equal to the upper limit. Hooey. Yeah, I feel like maybe I just need to get rid of these checks. I don't know. Really, I guess it just needs to make sure it fires correctly for this one. But why isn't it firing for these ones? Ah! Okay. So it should. This should. Is this not? This could be another scenario where things are happening asynchronously that they shouldn't be. They shouldn't be happening asynchronously. Like if I do. Let's see. Redis client. Oh wait, what a. I could probably just read in the docs, couldn't I? Where was I? Client dot h get and then callback. Yeah, so I can do a callback. So maybe that's an issue. That it needs to things need to occur inside a callback function so that they get executed synchronous or asynchronously rather than synchronously. Synchronously means that like while like right now this if check goes and says, hey, check here. Wait, that definitely could be it. Think that could definitely be it. Sorry, so if this function, I call this function to access the Reddit database and say, get the hash's upper limit. It takes time for the app to access the Redis database, which is somewhere else out there on the internet, and then come back with a result. In that intermediate time, it's going to try and execute code further down the line. And then that could go down here, but that should get to this point. All right, or maybe it just bypasses the if else checks. I think that might have found my problem. Needed to remember that things need to execute asynchronously. I'll double check online, but I'm pretty sure that's the case. Let us h get synchronous. Trying to return JSON object so I can pass it back before a page is rendered to populate my list. Problem that I can't figure out how to pass the object data. Great client. Agent set. Oh, HM set JSON stringify. So this is the callback function for this HM set. It looks for the monster list, and then it looks for mobs, and then sees what the values are if the fields are for the mobs thing, and then you stringify that, and then set mob object equal to whatever the JSON stringified version of that is. Get mobs function callback. So client hget all monster list function. Yeah, I think. I think that might be it. Now, how does that affect set odds though? You know? See, this gets set correctly, and that's not an issue. So that's not. Gonna clear it. And I think I'm gonna get rid of these. Put that there. Do the same thing for all of these. Okay. So every time response is sent, set that equal to true. And that returns, this still returns it to the outer thing, which will break the loop. And that should still work for these ones. And set it response true, text equals true there. I can put it underneath, just so it makes more sense syntactically. And I think I just should do that for all of them, probably. Here. There we go. Take that, cut it out, send it back. Challenge themselves. We don't need this until the end, I think. All right. Yeah, that's okay. That's all set in there. Through issue challenge hash, blah blah blah. Okay, I'm gonna cut this out. Well, it doesn't seem to affect this, you know. So I don't know why this would really hurt this, but just in case, you specified. I don't think this needs to be put here. I could just cut this out. Put that there. Earned, then challenged. Right? Return response set. Yeah, this should all cut it off early. This should cut off early, and then that should cut off early. Then if all those bad cases are dealt with, then you get to the good case and you return that. Where's this if case goes? Okay, yeah, they have not, no user specified. And so, that's fine though. Yeah. Okay, set odds, blah, blah, blah. Then, if there hasn't been a, this one is you just need it because if this is like the final case, and it's not, and this is specifically in response to the at the end of the Redis scan helper. Same thing here, where we have the commit odds. Odds. Set all of those things. Blah blah blah. This is where the Redis client needs to do its HGET and then in the response do all this other stuff. Initiator odds. If the initiator odds, blah blah blah. Okay. So delete that. Delete that. Cut this. Put it there. And then keep doing that to all of these. Cut that out. It just doesn't make any sense why I would need to put these checks here. Because there's no way they'd be getting hit otherwise. So, case of bad value. Cut it out of here. Cut it out of here. Cut this. End it. Alright, and then you can set this thing. Well, you can still put it at the end. Go. Body command. Cancel odds. And then we can just cut that. Cut this. Paste it. And then check it there. Cut it here. Put it here. And then Shift Alt F. Okay. Format's a lot of shit. Save it. And then this should have set it correctly. HSet, and then it should return that response status. Return response sent, and that should break it out of the helper loop. And then this should still fire there, because if that's true, then this won't fire either, and then that'll return. Commit odds, scan helper. Okay. So I think the problem here is that it got to this point, it read this stuff out, and then what we'll do here is Redis client dot hget, okay, hash comma upper limit, and then in a callback we say error reply, and then equals, put that in there, and put a little thing on there. Now this will say if error, same as before, we will run this, throw error, else, blah blah blah. Okay. So Shift Alt F. Else we can get rid of all this junk, because that's what we're going to be filling up with the stuff that used to be outside of it. Get upper limit reply. So now we do, I think we do everything else inside of here because it all relies on that. So I think we just take this and roll with it. If, all right, so we cut that and yeah. Okay. Shift Alt F. Yeah, so now we say, instead of relying on the return from that, all we do is reply. It's less than or equal to a reply, check that there's a valid number in the text. Then we also need to wait on these to get back, which can also be a problem. Methinks. JS implementing asynchronous functionality. Okay. Asynchronous JavaScript, blah, blah, blah. Programming concepts. Asynchronous. Normally, given programs code runs straight along with only one thing happening once. If a function relies on the result of another function, it has to wait for the other function to finish and return. And until that happens, the entire program is essentially stopped from the perspective of the user. Mac users, for example, sometimes experience this as a spinning rainbow-colored cursor, or the beach ball as often called. This cursor is how the operating system says the current program you're using has had to stop and wait for something to finish up, and it's taking so long that I was worried you'd wonder what was going on. It's a frustrating experience and isn't good using computer processing power, especially in an era where computers have multiple processor cores available. There's no sense sitting there waiting for something when you could let the other task chug along on another processor core and let you know when it's done. This lets you get work done in the meantime, which is the basis of asynchronous programming. It is up to the programming environment you're using, web browsers in this case, to provide you with APIs that allow you to run / test. That's not... No, synchronous is when you're running together. Asynchronous is when you're waiting, isn't it? Do I have it backwards? Oh, jeez. Okay, well, they're very useful, particularly in web programming. When a web app runs in a browser and it executes an intensive chunk of code without returning control to the browser can appear frozen. This is called blocking. If the browser is blocked from continuing to handle versus sync. I could have sworn. You're like, really? Oh man, I had it completely backwards. My bad. Okay. Asynchronous or synchronous means that you're basically only execute one thing at a time. Wow. I don't know how I fucked that one up. 4 years of college and I still don't know the fucking which is which. It means that you can execute multiple things. So we want it to be synchronous is I guess the point. So we want this to be synchronous. So these are going to be like null or something else, undefined, if we don't wait for them to get the result back. Error throw error reply. Check that there's a valid number in the text. Wait to get the upper limit back from Redis, then based on that. if odds, check that there's a valid number in the text. I can't. Yeah, this is a question for people on Slack, because I feel like it's just very bad practice to keep just throwing things into callbacks, like callback after callback, you know. Oh wait, no, there's a better way to do this. JS callback functionality. JavaScript callback functions passed as a parameter to another JavaScript function. The callback function run aside. Yeah, so what I could do, we can, instead of making these equal, we can say reps client dot hget and then basically copy this, paste it there, Shift Alt F, okay, and then say initiator odds. Sorry, error reply. Nope, can't do reply. I odds. Then we do equals blah blah blah. If error throw error, and then error throw error, else I say initiator odds equals I odds. There we go. Alright. Now we do the same thing, but with the challenged odds. Alright, real quick. Paste it there. C odds. Let me say, paste that back in, set that equal to that. And now we can just get rid of all this. There we go. There's probably an easier way of doing this, but that's the way I would know how to do it. Anyways, so that by putting in this callback function, this has to execute when it returns, and so that'll for sure let these initiator and challenge odds get set properly. There we go. Challenge odds. So now that we have everything on our end, we can hset, and then that'll print blah blah blah. Print if that's the case. Same thing down here. Okay. I think this should work. Be synchrony. Could be used asynchronously. Function 1 x return x code function 2. This method of passing in functions other functions to use them aside is used JavaScript. It's almost everywhere. The common name for a function pass is callback function. And in computer programming, callback is a piece of executable code that passes an argument to other code. It's expected to call back execute the argument at some convenient time. The invocation may be immediate as in synchronous callback, or it may happen at a later time as asynchronous. We'll come back to synchronous, asynchronous callback in another video. Okay, well, I think I can ask people about it, but I think this will work. Anyways, if they're both not 0, then delete the hash and respond JSON. Maybe this should also have a callback function. The sets can go off and do their own thing. It's just the gets that we need to wait for. Anyways, 200 in channel. Parties have submitted their odds. I don't think so, actually. It should get done on its own time. That should be fine. And then test all of that. Else you need to blah blah blah. Yeah, we shouldn't do that. Where does this end? Okay. Yeah. So here we can just say reply. There we go. Upper limit is blank. Okay. So that should work. This should work. So log, here's a request. If blah blah blah. All parties. Here's the ID being inspected. Redis client delete, status 200. Okay, is there something here that could be causing it? Scan, return, log, keys, function key, if key is break. So this is a callback function for this, that everything else is thrown in here. And then it checks against that, delete, hash, status 200 in channel. Yeah, no, that should be fine. JS. How to wait for something from a database. Since dbview expects a callback and you wish to wait for it, one solution would be to promisify, meaning to turn it into a promise which can be awaited. You can use a library like Bluebird. You can use a built-in promisify utility. You can write call views, await, view. Okay. Maybe I need another library, but I'm gonna hope that maybe this will do it instead. We'll see. Anyways. Okay. That's everything I could think of that could be causing issues. So with all that out of the way, I'm gonna start up a server again, index.js, and port 3000. MATLAB. Okay. Not helpful for me. Alright. Rebooted with a new implementation. 5. God damn it. Why? 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 Change this message. Get rid of that period. We only do exclamation points here. Alright. You've been challenged. On. Why? 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 Doesn't challenge humor to enter value. Okay. Row. Sync code. Block or wait for the event before continuing. Callback function is a function that's passed into another function as an argument and is expected to execute after some kind of event. The purpose of the callback function is to inform a class sync async if some work in another class is done. This is very useful when working with asynchronous tasks. Suppose we want to perform some routine tasks like perform some operation, display content after clicking a button or fetching data from the internet. This is used in event handling as we get notified when a button is clicked via callback function. This type of design pattern is used in observer design pattern. The observer pattern is a software design pattern in which an object called the subject maintains a list of its dependent called observers and notifies them automatically of any state changes, usually by calling one of their methods. Source wiki. In Java, not Java, we want JavaScript. Several platforms. Continuation. Callbacks are JavaScript 101, and understanding what they are and what they do is key to understanding synchronization. Although callbacks are also used for synchronous. What? Okay. Continuation passing is the process of passing a continuation callback to a function to continue the flow of the program. Run async. Let x equals 1. Run async, blah, 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 x equals 2. This will run second or never. This is pointless. Above code example, the line marked as running first will indeed run first, and the line marked as running second will run second. This is because of our made-up run async function, which calls the continuation some undetermined time later, perhaps never. Why doesn't it execute? Hold on. You will notice that this is a pointless line as well. The logical reason for that is no assignment is ever done. If you want the value of x to change, you would do something like x equals function, blah. Now you're assigning the return value of function to x. However, in this case, run async, blah, blah, plus, even though x is returned, it doesn't go anywhere because there is no assignment. Instead, you may think to write this, x equals run async. Okay. Maybe still may not work. It actually depends on the inner workings of run async and whether it ultimately returns the value of its callback. But this is not possible to do asynchronously. Rather than using this non-extent function, we can use an actual asynchronous JavaScript function as an example. So x equals set timeout, doesn't pass it, takes a thing as a parameter. Return x. This will execute the ++ xcode 1-ish second after the final console.log. The final console.log will log the return value of set timeout. This final console.log x will log the return value of set timeout, which is not the value returned from its callback argument, but the numerical ID of the timeout, which, as you can see, which you can use to stop the timer and prevent the callback from running at all. I don't understand what this is talking about at all. Can't return from callbacks. It's pretty much the golden rule of continuation passing style in JavaScript. You can use a return statement to stop execution in the middle of a callback, but you have to call any continuations and pass values to them if you want to keep using them. Let's look at an example that makes an HTTP GET request, writes the response to a file, reads from that file, reverses its contents, writes that to a file, and then makes a post request to the server. Oh boy. The wait for each operation to complete before the next operation starts. Right. Yeah, okay, that's what I want to do. However, the operations are asynchronous, and we have no way of knowing when and if they will complete. In order to handle this, we have to pass continuations callbacks to each asynchronous function, HTTP GET, HTTP request. Hi, sir. What is Turing? Did I misname it? Hold on. I swear to God, if I misnamed it, I'm gonna be mad. Please don't tell me I misnamed it. No, it's Turing. Okay. Phew. Anyways, Turing Complete just is a programming thing that computability theory, a system of data manipulation rules, is said to be Turing Complete, or computationally universal if it can be used to simulate any Turing machine. This means that the system is able to recognize or decide other data manipulation rule sets. It basically determines if your code can compile successfully, if it's like a proper coding system. Very funny. So, yeah. It's just I needed to alliterate for Tuesdays, and I wanted to do a day where I coded, so I just picked Turing complete. Um. Anyways, I'm just trying to write some write out a bot and see if I can get it to work correctly. So we'll see if that works. Create read stream. Get host let body response dot on readable. Body response dot read response dot on end. But that still doesn't explain what's going on here, you know? It in the code it's telling me I do slash commit odds and it gets the number in here, reads it, and then it's supposed to get into here. This never I guess I just need to put in more. Now in English, please. Yeah, no, where do I even begin? I'm trying to get this bot to take my number that I put in here, which it reads successfully, and then put it into a little like folder or list of items, and store it so that it knows how to access it later. But it doesn't seem to be doing that. Every time I do it, it tells me that I don't have an active challenge right now, which I do.
Nice.
Hey, thanks for the follow. Hello, Derek. Thanks for the yeah. Just decided to throw on some more Hawaiian shirts because I haven't worn this in a while, and it's a relatively. It looks like it keeps looking like it's gonna rain, but then it never does. So I don't know what's up with that. Anyways, I have an active challenge out. This is the challenge. I have a database that's supposed to store challenges between two users, the user on the left, the user on the right, which are identified by these little tags. And they're split by this little icon there. And so basically I have an active challenge out. This is my ID, and this is the person I've challenged. And they set a value for an upper limit. The upper limit, this is based on the odds challenge. Posture check, thank you. Sorry. What was I saying? What's redeemed? Oh, did you redeem a posture check without using any channel points? That's pretty advanced, bro. Wonder how you did that. Anyways, so the program it gets this back, so it knows that there's a key to be looked at, and then because I submitted commit odds, it has found that it looks at the evolve parties at the hash, which is it's looking at this one. It's like, okay, so this person, me, I sent out the request. It sees that this involved party, one of the involved parties here, it looks at like this one and then looks at this one and says, hey, are either of these matching the requester's user ID? And the case is yes. So then it goes in and it looks at the body of the text, which I sent the number 25 in this case, and it checks to make sure that that's an actual integer, because it needs to be. And so just for debugging's sake, I put in these logs that say, okay, you've matched here, and then it sets the odds equal to that and made sure, just double checks to make sure that that's the case. I don't know where to even start then. We're already so deep in the weeds of it. I've got my VODs on YouTube for basically my entire process of how I got here. I know it's fucking a shit ton to just be jumping into right at the moment. If nothing else, you could just watch me scream at a bunch of text that doesn't make any sense on a screen for a couple hours. And maybe I'll figure something out eventually. I don't know. Anyways, bottom line is, number needs to be received. Number has been received. So, limit. We're on set odds. Sorry. So the number's been received, and then it says, okay, now that the number's been received, I need to see if that number is lower than the upper limit. So it goes to this database that I have somewhere on the internet, and it looks at the information under this hash of the two users. So it has a bunch of information that is set at the beginning when the challenge is first created. So it creates this hash from the body, user ID, and the challenged ID, which are grabbed up here. And then it has fields for upper limit, initiator odds, and challenge odds. It defaults them all to 0 to start with, but then they can be accessed later. So then set odds, which is covered above, is supposed to set them, and so it sets them here, and it sets that, and then once that's done, the next thing is to commit odds, and so that it goes to check on the upper limit that should have been set earlier, and if the upper limit gets grabbed from the database, then you need to perform some actions on it. Oh, no. Wait a minute. That's too many. That's one too many lines, brother. Okay. Yeah. If there's an error, throw it. Else, do all this stuff. So the reply is going to be the upper limit value. So then it checks to see if the odds are greater than 1 or less than equal to the reply. That needs to be the case when you're doing an odds challenge. It's like, all right, odds you do this, and the other person says 1 in 50, and so then you both count down from 3. If you're doing this in real life, you count down from 3 and say, okay, 3, 2, 1, and then you both say a number at the same time. I want to be able to do that digitally, but you can't really count down and then say it at the exact same time over the internet. So instead, you have this bot here that'll take both of your numbers at your leisure and then display them both when both people enter them. So, yeah. So then it checks to make sure that the odds that you've entered are within the bounds that are appropriate. And then it grabs the initiator odds from the database. Make sure that they haven't already been set. If they have already been set, then you set this flag variable to true, which will let them respond a certain way later. Anyways, if it hasn't been set yet, aka it's been set equal to 0, then you can hset here and print it and go on. Do that, and then based on we're doing this in a for loop, so yeah, in this for loop, involve parties. It'll read the initiator first and then the challenged. So if that's equal to 0, then it's the initiator, and then do the check on the initiator thing. If it's the challenged, if it's the other one, there's only 2 options. So it's 0 index, so the first entry is 0. That's why it's the initiator. Then if it's not 0, then it has to be 1, which means it's the challenged. And then you check the challenged. And then based on that, you print out what you need to. Then update the variables accordingly to check them to see if they're both not 0. Oh boy. Oh, come on. I hate it when that happens. So, if they're both not equal to 0, that means both people have entered a value. So then you can delete that hash because you don't need it anymore. Response type in channel, and then just respond back saying, hey, both parties have done this thing. Do with that information what you will. And then you can go from there. response type. Thinking maybe to simplify this, I'm thinking that I might need to the problem that I'm basically dealing with right now, I think, is the fact that some functions are executing, like this code is just like going line by line, you know, as it does. But on some lines, you need to wait for information to come back from the database before you can continue executing. That shouldn't matter. This should still execute, even it's just based on this if statement, so that should be fine. Like that should be able to execute asynchronously, you know. I don't understand why that's the case. Let me just listen on that port. Slash commit odds 6. I have been challenged. I have been challenged. You know this. You know this. I'm literally right there. My ID hasn't changed. Oh my god. What else could be causing this? Gets down here. This is where this line starts. Follow it all the way down. It gets down here. If response sent is false. That's what that exclamation point means there. If there's been no response sent, then you send this. But it should get set to true. Like, if it gets to here, it already it's already in here. So in that case, I need to get inside here yet. We know it. Okay, sorry. So, Jesus Christ, I'm getting so many food messages now. Alright, so if we're in here, we know this gets in here because this thing reads out. All number matches, blah, blah, blah. And that's fine. Honestly, I could probably get rid of this later, but I'm just keeping it for the sake of logging stuff. But in here, it does an hget, and it doesn't log an error, so it should be fine. Then in that case, it gets in here, it does an odds check, and then I guess I'll just type this in. Console.log odds submitted. Okay. Then we say console.log, and then we say reply from hget of upper limit, and that's going to be equal to reply. Okay. And then to just keep going on this line, I'm going to say another log down here and say initiator. Actually, this probably make more sense if I put it down here. Initiator odds. Initiator odds. Okay. Challenged odds. Okay, so try this again. But if we're in here, you know, we're in this if check. Somewhere there's going to be a response sent that's equal to true, or the else triggers, which it also set response set equal to true. In that case, you still should not hit this. But if these don't get logged, then that means it never gets inside of this hget in the first place, which is going to be a whole nother thing to deal with. Anyways, so if I do odds, apply from hget, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, okay, so let me Control C, clone index. And the other problem is that this never gets set. We're never seeing the reply, where is it? We're never seeing this reply 0, which is a problem. So let's try this again. Let's try /commit odds. I'm gonna say 49. And it says no active challenges. Undefined. Why is that undefined? Why? That means these are undefined. Why are these undefined? You know, why is that the case? We'll find out in a second. First, I needed this. So. Walk. Maybe I'll try to walk. Seems like they have pretty good stuff. Oh, also, Yeah, these shouldn't. None of these should execute one after another. Because they're all tagged together. So, I understand. Um. Anyways, why are the odds not returning anything? The first problem. Um. They are. Yeah, that's what it is. Set there. Why? Oh my god. Response if all's gone well. Do they just never get set? I need to do another check here. Um. Search repos. Response index. So haven't sent a response yet. Literally. Well, yeah, this should be what's sent back if it's really. Don't understand. Okay. Log my odds. Log see odds. See if they should be. This should also read out undefined. Unless, again, if this is asynchronous, then these aren't getting set in time. Let's see. Okay, index.js. Go back. Slash odds. 2. What? Now there's no challenges? Why? Where did the... what? understand. We had a challenge and now it's gone. Okay. Okay. Slash. Okay. Challenges back. Yeah. Okay. Let me see if I can actually break it real quick. Slash commit odds. Now it's airing out on that. Cancel odds. It's right here. Literally right here. $18. Console.log key has been used. Log done looping through keys. Okay. So this key used equals that. And so I cancel it. It goes through and looks through. Here's the ID being inspected. And then I should just send this once. Clearly that's not the case. Try it again. Cancel odds. Why? Also, look at that order. That ordering is fucked. It reads done looping through keys. Yeah, cursor value at cursor. And then it looks at that and says cursor value at value. As it says blah blah blah. Cursor value keys at cursor. But it reads out done looping through the keys before these get logged out? Why? Also, it sends it looks at this before even looks at the rest of them. Um okay. Also, it did cancel the odds. It just also crashed the app when I did that. Slash odds at ping. Okay. Sends that correctly. Now, if I do cancel odds, what happens? Crashes the app. It reads done looping through keys and sets this out. And then it has to send that because it's false, so that's fine. It'll send that through. And then cursor, so it's definitely an async error. But how do I make this? The order it should be in is that it should be showing this cursor value and the keys at cursor value. And then when it breaks, it'll do that. And then this should be the last line. But it's clearly not. So how do you get this to wait on that to finish? That's the question. Oh, God. How do I can't even get this any bigger. Sorry, let's see this again. I have to just ask for help. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Okay. So based on how the code is written, it should be 1, 2, then 3, and 4, and then 5. Debug logs have pretty much confirmed it. The numbers scrawled in red are the order that they should. Past and then that's all right, and then that's what. Where did that get sent? printing stuff in the end, then Skin is printing it in orders. I might be just misunderstanding how callbacks work. I think that's probably where I'm fucking up. I don't know where I got in my head that they did that. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. If I'm reading this right... I think my neighbor might finally be responding to the message I wrote on the board. It's called Whenever the Async Call is Fast to Completes. You have no way to guarantee when that happens. For the scan finishes, and then You want to have all the promises resolved, then call some function and you resolve promise and you do something like I mentioned above. You just need to perform an action on each scan. You can keep doing what you're doing, but you need to expect that you can't guarantee the promises will have resolved at the time you exit your do while. You can almost guarantee. Okay. And one finishing before and more. The looping is done. We'll print. Looping is done. We'll print after all of the async. Uh, user. So that sounds like I need to just use some awaits. Hmm. Okay. I don't understand why it isn't saying that though. Saying can. Callback in there as a mechanism to process the results of each scan, but you need to collect those results somehow if you want to do some logic about each one. Functions are instances of the async function. The keyword is permitted within the keyword enable a servant as promise-based behavior. Promise change. Key spot, use the keyword. Wait, which is this? Asynchronous is necessary. It's just not non-blocking. You can make a call, and rather than getting the result in JS, you get a promise that will allow you to process the result when async call completes. You have to make the parent function async because you now no longer know when that function will complete. I am not sure. So, is there a way I can rewrite my code maybe that doesn't that doesn't rely on this finishing first? Maybe I can just return. get away with storing all the promises in what Redis scanner client actually returns. Then await promise at all, array of promises. After the loop makes all the calls, then you're back in position where your code is linear and you can iterate over those results. Find the first one that gives you the match you're looking for, or if you fall off the end of the array, you have no matches found. Your use case, but it sounds like you get away with storing all of the promises, what Redis scan actually returns, then await promise.all after the loop makes all the calls. Then you're back in a position where your code is linear. You can iterate over the results, find the first one that gives you the match you're looking for. If you fall off the end of the array, have no matches found. There. Snip. New. Get it. Then you'd call the Redis scan helper function, either busy wait until it's returned to pass the async. Okay. So let's take that information and roll with it. Just always think. The code. Have the code in Redis scan only look for the info in Redis, then respond via HTTP after. And you can use async await on redis.scan. And only look for the info in Redis, then respond via HTTP after. True, false. JS promises. Actually, here, just take what he said and then just Google it. Await promised at all. JS await promise dot JavaScript MDN. Okay. A single promise that fulfills when all of the promises passed as an iteratable have been fulfilled. The iteratable contains no promises, or the iteratable iterable contains promises that have been fulfilled and non-promises that have been returned. It rejects with the reason of the first promise that rejects error caught by the first argument if that argument has caught an error inside using a try-catch throw box. Usually used when you have multiple. Choose new promise for all reject. Time resolve. I don't understand. That's at all. Redis client.scan. So sounds like you get away with storing all of the promises. Calls, then you're back in the position where your code is linear. You can iterate over those results. Okay. So let's just fucking cut all this out. Comment. And then no, we don't even need that, but I'll just keep it there for now for clarity's sake. So no, okay, maybe we don't comment all of it. But do Redis scan thinking of storing all the promises, what Redis scan actually returns. No, wait, promise all. All reject. What is that? Maybe we do JS promises before. Promise. Project's object represents the eventual completion or failure of an asynchronous operation as resulting value. To learn about the way promises work and how to use them, we advise you using promises first. A promise is an object representing the eventual completion or failure of an asynchronous option. Most people are consumers of already created promises. This guide will explain consumption of returned promises before explaining how to create them. Essentially, a promise is a returned object to which you attach callbacks instead of passing callbacks into a function. Imagine a function, create audio file async. Asynchrony generates a sound file given a configuration record and two callback functions, one called the audio file successfully created, and another if an error occurs. Successful callback, create also audio settings, success callback. Modern functions that return a promise you can attach your callbacks to instead. If create audio file sync async were rewritten to return a promise, using it could then be as simple as shorthand for const promise, promise.then. Okay. We call this an asynchronous function call. This convention has several advantages. We'll explore each one. Unlike old style passed-in callbacks, a promise comes with some guarantees. Callbacks will never be called before the completion of the current run of the JavaScript event loop. Callbacks added with then, even after the success or failure of the asynchronous, will be called as above. Multiple callbacks may be added by calling then several times. Each callback is executed one after another in the order in which they were inserted. One of the great things about using promises and chaining, a common need to execute two more asynchronous operations back to back, where each subsequent operation starts where the previous operation succeeds with a result from the previous step. We accomplish this by creating a promise chain. Here is the magic. The then function returns a new promise different from the original. Do something. Promise then. Promise 2 represents the completion not just of do something, but also of the success callback or failure callback you passed in, which can be other asynchronous functions returning a promise. When that's the case, any callbacks added to promise 2 get queued behind the promise returned with a successful callback or failure callback. Basically, each promise represents the completion of another asynchronous step in the chain. In the old days, doing several asynchronous functions would lead to classic callback pyramid of doom. Do something, result, blah blah, do something, result, yeah. Okay, that's kind of what I've got going on in this code right now. So with modern functions, we attach our callbacks on the returned to the returned promises instead, forming a promise chain. The arguments to then are optional and catch failure callback. It's short for then null failure callback. You might see this expressed with arrow functions instead. Do something, result, the third thing, then final result, console logout, final result, catch failure callback. Always return results, otherwise callbacks won't catch the result of a previous promise. With arrow functions, blah blah blah, short for return X. Okay. Chaining after catch is possible. Chain after a failure. You catch, which is first will come a new action even after the blah blah blah. Okay. Propagation. Okay. Promise is a proxy for a value not necessarily known. Promise one of these pending, fulfilled, or rejected. A pending promise can be fulfilled with a value or rejected with a reason. When either of these options happens, the associated handlers queued up by a promises then method are called. If the promise has already been fulfilled or rejected when a corresponding handler is attached, the handler is called. There's no race condition between a asynchronous operation completing and its handlers being attached. As a promise.prototype.then and catch methods return promises, they can be chained. Then on rejection, on rejection, or catch on rejection. Several languages have mechanisms for lazy evaluation deferring a computation, which they all call promises. Represent promises that are already happening. Okay. Yeah, but how do I create a new promise object? So the structure is primarily used to wrap functions that do not already support promises. Promise all. Wait for all promises to be resolved, or for any to be rejected. Turned. Where basic examples. My first promise is new promise, resolve, reject. We can resolve. when what we were doing asynchronous is reject when it fails. In this example, we use set timeout to simulate async code. In reality, you'll probably be using something like SAR and HTML5 API. Set timeout just a built-in function? We use set timeout to simulate async code. Okay. We say let scan promise equal new promise. Structured primarily used to wrap functions that do not already support promises. For situations. Return new promise. Get word. Is that a function? There it is. No, tethered get number. Where's tethered get word? Gets party closure variable. Okay. Oh boy, we're almost out of the end of the stream and I'm barely just starting to grasp how the fuck to use these promises. For promise is proxy for a value. So what? A promise. You can create a promise which won't run a block of code until you resolve the promise. That does everything you want it to do at the end. And your code, once it's done, call promises resolve function. And based on the what's it called? Cameo. Export async function. Clear key cache delete promises. Equals 0 D0. New constant, new cursor. Cache.scan, cursor match glob. Cursor keys. Out of success fail for promises. Okay. Const deletes. Export async function. Clear cache key. New cursor keys await cache scan cursor match glob. Const deletes. Key stop map. Key. This is okay, so it catches the array. This number. Okay, maybe if I just delete this. Okay. Then if const new cursor then we could do like cursor equals 0. Then we say async export async function. Fucking oh. Wow, this sounds very similar to the fucking Mallrats song. Alright, so const new Redis client dot scan at cursor. Okay. And then cursor equals new cursor, and then scan promise dot push. And a resolve. Keys. Um, uh, oh. Scan promise keys. Return scan promise all. Scan promise. Okay. Remove so returns all the promises. Get rid of that. Oh boy, I think if we could get the okay on this, I'm probably gonna call the stream there. I just want to make sure I get this ideology correct. Cause yeah, this is gonna need a lot of rotation and refinement if I want to get this right. And it kind of cruxes on this because I need to be able to scan the database and then pour over all the results and then do that stuff. Okay. Conceptually. And you just wanted to use a few keys and have the others for safekeeping and returning later. You can do something like updates. Uh, I'm close. I'm close to breaking through on this. I just need a little bit more help from my friends. Uh, Boy howdy. I might just cut the stream here. I just want to see if you do while loop will probably finish before the promises do. The async calls read populate promises array with promises, then the function returns a promise that will resolve once all of those promises. Do while makes all the async calls. Okay. Then the function returns a promise that will resolve once all of those other promises have resolved. Okay. Okay. So. No. Oh my god. Okay. Just get rid of all this junk. That stays. Okay. Now we make this. Get rid of that. Get rid of that. Get rid of all this junk. I have it saved somewhere else. Okay. Now, we make this async. Then, we comment all this junk. We say goodbye. And then we say bah. Right? So much for your help. Anyways, I hope any of that, literally any of that, could have been educational to any of you guys. Probably not. Probably doesn't make any sense. It barely makes sense to me. But yeah, thanks for watching. Tomorrow's Whatever Wednesday. Probably gonna be playing some Burnout Paradise with Lul. And if I can't play the music on there, then I guess I'll just die. But I'll probably just get the fucking VODs muted over that. I don't know. We'll see. I think it'll be fine on YouTube. I think Twitch might be getting angry about it though. So, I don't know. Anyways, till then, stay safe. Thanks for watching.